Ronan, great to see you, my friend. How's it going?
Brendan, good to see you too, man. It's been a long time. Great to catch up.
Likewise. It's about 10 years since we were working together in Dublin, so a lot has happened in the interim. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, God, 10 years. Yeah, it's seems like a lifetime ago, all right, doesn't it? It's I mean, when we met each other, Brendan, we were kind of like in that first stage of work career right after college, and trying to figure out what was the next step for us, right? So we landed up in a huge Big Four accountancy firm up in Dublin.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, like, life takes you in different twists and turns, I guess.
It does, and that's, I guess, the whole purpose of this chat is just to kind of give the listeners a view of, the career you've had, the different stages you've taken in that 10 years, but also before, even back to university days and things like that. But you're currently the Vice President of Sales for CPG. Do you want to talk a little bit about that role and what you do today?
Yeah, sure. I joined the Galvanina company I'm currently with in January of 2020, and I mean, an amazing company, right? We do all the private label premium beverages for grocery chains in the United States, and incredible experience through these turbulent times. And I guess you learn a lot about yourself during times of adversity, right? Because I joined the company when, I actually remember I was over in Italy in February of 2020, and right around then the whole world started shutting down because of what was happening in Italy, which began in Italy. And we've maintained a very strong work environment. Results have been fantastic in that time period. We're kind of the disruption, I'll give a huge credit to our leadership, because disruption never really occurred. We were able to maintain supply chain and some of the fundamentals to succeed in business. So all in all, it's been a very rewarding year and a half with this company, and really enjoying it. So happy days.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, the last year and a half, it's been incredible, really, and there's been a lot of introspection, I think, right across the board off the back of that as well, and people thinking about careers and the future and that sort of thing. I mean, when you look at yourself now, Ronan, in the position that you're in, the success you've had in sales, if you were to go back and talk to Ronan back in university, are you where you thought you would be?
Well, talk to Ronan in university, that'll be a conversation, I tell you. Genuinely. It's really, I've never really kind of asked myself that question, Brendan. I've never kind of looked back that far, right, about my life as university to now. What I would say about university to now is, when I was in university, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I was put in, I remember doing the Leaving Cert in Ireland, right? And everything hinged on your performance in the Leaving Cert in Ireland. What you were basically, good enough to do. Good enough to do. Well, I'll tell you one thing, right? That if I look back to Ronan when I was a 16-year-old Ronan, let's go back to there. I'd love to have the conversation with myself about being a master tradesman of something, right? Because I look at a lot of tradesmen that are electricians, plumbers, builders, always in demand through peak cycles and slow times. There's always a demand for those services. So, I see a lot of people in the US, for example, that have those skill sets, right? Those they master the trade when they were in their younger years. They own large companies now. They own medium-sized companies now. They employ a lot of people. They do fantastic work across, and as I mentioned, they're always in demand. So that's a conversation I'd love to have with Ronan, going back to when I was 16, that not everything hinges upon you achieving what Johnny Soap wants you to achieve in school.
Yeah.
You know, like I say it to my kids, you know, growing up now, I'll say it to my kids that, you know, I want you to have an education. I want you to go as far as you can. But open your eyes. You know, you don't need to just be told you have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, this is the path you have to take. I wasted a lot of my time.
Yeah.
I wasted a lot of time. I learned a lot too, right? A lot of fun. But
A lot of fun.
I wasted a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked just
That's the
before we
convoluted answer,
went live
but I'll
on
go
this.
back to when I was
We were
16
speaking a bit before.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the signal cut there, but we were saying before we went live that, you know, when we grew up in the 80s, kind of 90s, you know, if we look at the generation before us, university was a luxury. You know, not everyone could go to university. And so when it came to our generation, whatever generation we're called now, I don't know what letter we probably fall into, but it was very much, you know, you should go to university at all costs. And it was encouraged, and you were kind of said, you know, pick a course, any course, and go for it. Whereas, as you rightly said, you know, maybe your natural inclination was to go for a trade, or, you know, you wanted to be a pilot or something like that. But that was rarely kind of encouraged in the way maybe we would do now going forward based on what we learned. But yeah, it's a very valid point though, I think, for sure.
Well, as well, you know, it's like you think about the future of education, right? If you want to get a degree, if you want to get a master's, you know, you can get it. You know, there's, besides going to an Ivy League university in the United States or attending a UCC or UCD, if you're, you know, let's just say you're a student coming out of Kerry and you want to go to UCD to do a course, well, that comes with a cost, okay? That comes with a cost. Who picks up that cost? Inherently in Ireland, it's, you know, your parents are helping you out. There's government schemes in place to support that infrastructure. But now I think, you know, there's also a new medium for higher education learning, and that's through e-learning. I mean, because again, it's up to you. If you want to do it, you can do it. You know, regardless of your maturity levels, regardless of your ability, you know, you will find a way to get it done because there's more information available now than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, if you look back to when we were being educated, when we were youngsters, when our parents, your parents are always, their best intentions are to do the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And no one can ever question that about your parents. Right? There's no doubt in anybody's mind about that. And I think, you know, the more information that becomes available through generation to generation, I think the more disruption we'll see through the education system. And it'll offer more opportunity, I think, to the people that really want to go far, that it'll open their eyes. You can do multiple degrees and courses online. Probably, you know, you'll spend just as much time in your computer, but you'll just be more productive doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. I mean, there is information overload almost today, but there's lots of different pathways now to get to your goal and objective. And maybe that was always the case. Maybe not, but I think there's more avenues now than ever before, and that information is readily available to people. So it should allow them kind of have a more holistic view of how they can get to where they want to go. But when you went to college, then you did BIS, that Business Information Systems. That's what you did.
So I did that for 1 year, and then I took the Van Wilder approach and did accounting after that. So graduated in accounting degree, and then, as we said, right, like I spent 2 years up in Ernst & Young up in Dublin with yourself.
Yep.
And I knew, man, like you knew that as well, I'd say, about me back in the day, right? Like I had no interest in that. There was something about just like no, there was a couple of things actually about Ireland, right? Like I love Ireland. Ireland's my home country, but my God, like the commute into work on the bus and the rain every day, right? That was a beatdown for me, like psychologically. I don't mind saying it to anybody. It was every day you're going in and you're wet and you're damp going into an office, and
Yeah.
you're in there with a bunch of accountants for 9 or 10 hours. Dude,
Not your bag.
No, I mean, it's like, I will say this, right? Like when we were in that office, right, there was a good crew of us inside there.
There was.
And we used to have a good bit of banter between us inside, and that made it fun, right? In a lot of ways, there was we had some great social gatherings outside of it, and we had a good little clique, didn't we?
We did. We certainly did, and it was an eclectic mix of personalities as well at that particular time, and I think that made it really entertaining and really interesting for all of us as a group that started off at that time. And actually, I have Pat Moran's going to talk on the podcast next week, so it'd be great to catch up with him, who's obviously leading that department when we were there. But and I think
lovely guy actually. Pat was he's a really nice guy.
Really was one of the partners that kind of not that the others didn't, but he was certainly kind of an inspiring partner in the way that he dealt with people, which was incredibly transparent, open, warm. He was a good guy. He's a good guy. It'd be great to catch up with him. But you mentioned, that, and you said, I knew back then maybe that it wasn't for you, but that's down to a lot of personalities, and we've seen that team go on and do a lot of different things. But what was it in particular that, when you left, what was your goal after saying, okay, so this consultancy sort of audit world isn't for me? Like, what was the driver next then to your next step? And are you glad you did it, maybe? That's the other thing. Are you glad you went and had that experience?
Man, I've never thought of it. I've never thought of it like that. Like, I've never asked myself that question, but now, like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you never know what you want to do until you do something you don't want to do.
This is it. Yeah.
I mean, you have to, and that's it. You have to go through experiences, good and bad. Like, I mean, and I wouldn't say EMY was a bad experience in what any sense of the word. It was an eye-opening experience, right? It definitely changed my perspective on what I wanted to do. I mean, like, I knew probably 1 year into EMY that I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out of Ireland. Like, I felt the need to do something different. And I also knew that I didn't want to stay in that world. I wanted to I always enjoyed sales. I mean, throughout my, like, probably I was 18, I guess, I bartended, right? I bartended for years and years. And that I enjoyed the banter, that you'd have with patrons coming into the bars. I mean, and that was kind of not my first sales role, because I remember back in the day when I was a youngster, I used to go selling programs in Porky Queeve for big games. And,
oh, did you?
My mum was a saleswoman, so it was always in my family, and I just felt that it was. I really felt that if I wanted to go with the path that I wanted to go, that I needed to leave Ireland.
And why that, Ronan? What was it that you felt you needed to leave Ireland for? Was it to get different experiences, or was it something particularly in sales that you felt you'd get better experience elsewhere?
I thought that the opportunities were greater elsewhere. It's like, we got to remember too, I left Ireland to go backpacking really through South America in 2008, right? So that was like the financial crisis in the world right there.
Yeah.
So opportunities were not, opportunities were kind of, tough to come by. I managed, like, I remember leaving Ireland in September of 2009 to come back to the US, and sleeping on the floor in San Diego for a few months, bartending in San Diego for a couple of months, all the while trying to get a job in the corporate world in sales. And I remember going to Denver, Colorado in it would have been probably March or April of 2010, and I was going for a final interview with Diageo Beer Company, and I remember staying in a motel room there, right, in Denver, Colorado, getting ready for my interview the next day, and I had $200 left to my name. You know?
Yeah.
Like $200 left to my name. Like this was it. You know what I mean?
Make or break time.
So yeah, this is it. But you know, having said that, like I often think to myself, if I didn't get that job, what would I have done? And I knew a couple of my buddies at the time over there where, you know, I could have bartended, I could have you could set up your own business, you could go do cleaning, you could go do something. But then again, I wanted to do it a path I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to get into sales. I knew I wanted to be involved in corporate, and I, you know, stayed true to it and stuck with it. And even, you know, it was a rocky road at times, and I won't lie about it. I won't. Getting that phone call saying I had the job was like one of those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was the experience like in Diageo then? Did it live up to what you were expecting it to do in that sort of large corporate sales environment? You know, what did you learn out of that maybe you took forward into your next few roles afterwards?
Great question. I think the Diageo days for me were like obviously eye-opening to corporate culture. I think, you know, when there was a completely different corporate culture to what EY was, right? Because this is a sales environment. Number one. No, actually, let me put it back. I think every job is a sales job. Just put that out there. I think everything has to do with sales. If you're not making money, then you're not providing value. If you're not providing value, a company doesn't stay in business.
Yeah,
that's, you know, people forget about that at times. So Diageo was a big eye-opener for that, right? You have like shareholders that ultimately you're responsible, and that's kind of something that's eked into your mentality, that, you know, you've got to hit your yearly numbers, and then a big thing that I took out of it was kind of the incentivized bonus schemes that are in place in corporate America. You know, I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that too, right? Like, it's like, hit your number.
Yeah.
You know, figure out a way to hit your number.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty cool thing to do. You know, the perks of working for Diageo back then were absolutely huge. I mean, like, I went to the Masters, you know, brought many people back to Ireland golfing, played Sawgrass, like, all on incentive trips. Incredible. But again, right, like, like, you were given a goal, you were given a budget. Now you have to find a way out to hit your budgeted goal. And how do you do that? You drive it through incentives, you drive it through bonus schemes. And it was an amazing experience. Now, what I will say is that the bureaucracy in some of these big companies, no system is perfect. I fully get that, and I respect it. But sometimes, man, it's like, you know, it's like just, there's so many layers to go through to get a decision.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard, you know, the analogy.
Do you find that through corporate?
Yeah, all the corporate. I think all corporates I've worked for, I find it similar. And I guess the analogy I heard once from somebody, which I thought was a good one. You know, corporates are like oil tankers. The smaller companies are more like speedboats. So when you want to make a change, you know, or you want to go in a certain direction, obviously the smaller companies are more set up for that. The larger companies aren't. But then scalability is different. But yeah, it is. I mean, the bigger it gets, the more bureaucracy is there. But I think a lot of big firms are trying to break that down, you know, because the way the world is working, and obviously the customer is, you know, key. The customer experience is key. Big companies, big corporates are trying to figure out ways of breaking down some of those kind of bureaucratic lines, I think. But yeah, similar experiences for sure. And after Diageo, then Ronan, what did you do then after that?
So so after Diageo, so I went to work for a smaller craft brewery called Breckenridge Brewery out of Colorado, And my boss at the time was a guy from Northern Ireland, and loved the experience working with those guys, right? Because I brought more the sales corporate mindset into a smaller organization, and kind of a lot of the traits I learned through Diageo really helped us as a team with the smaller company, and loved that experience. That was a really, really great experience. And then we got bought by Anheuser-Busch, by Budweiser.
Oh yeah.
So then it kind of rolled into that division of ABI, and covered 10 states in sales for that division. And again, right, I think that was a very unique experience in itself, right? Because you go from a smaller division, you go from a smaller size of the pie to a minuscule size of the pie when you're in a larger organization, right? You get rolled into Budweiser, you're a small craft brewery division, you're 0.01% of their business. So how do you stay relevant? How do you create value? And how do you get heard? By, if you're trying to monetize some of the conversations at distributors and at retailers, and then 2 minutes later you have the Budweiser guy coming in behind you with a larger budget and a selling success story that goes on for years and years. So it's a different challenge.
Yeah.
And I think kind of what we saw, and it was the same in Ireland actually for quite a while, is like craft breweries were really popular. Craft beers are really popular. People just getting creative around, what they want to drink. And
yeah,
I mean, I was drinking these IPAs at one stage that were 9%. And
fun evenings.
Well, man, you've got to realize your tolerance too, right? Because
yeah.
You think about it, like we love a few pints, right? We enjoyed a few beers, and you'd have a 4% Guinness or 4.2% Guinness there, and all of a sudden you're doubling your bandwidth to a 9% IPA.
Yeah.
But you're drinking it like a 4% Guinness.
Yeah.
Slow down here, though. It's like, drink a glass of water.
Or just go home.
Or just go home, yeah. Or just go home. That's a great call right there.
Yeah. It's funny, I was talking to a guy this morning, actually. I was taking the kids, they were playing tennis, but he's a Brazilian guy, and they're starting off a craft beer business in Portugal. So it's a good few years behind Ireland, Ronan, I'd say, and the US as well. It's really starting to take off here, and you're getting a lot of small startups that are bringing these kind of IPAs, these artisanal beers into Portugal. But it's a good space, I'd say.
Well, look, it's an interesting space, right? Because you've got to think about, what's your objective, right? If you go into the space, are you going into this to make it a family business? Are you going into this to sell your business in 5 years' time to a larger brewery? So if you set your stall out, your strategy needs to be aligned for a 5-year term versus a short-term plan. I think that's the biggest misconception people have around starting any business. We see the horizon, but we don't build a plan to get there.
Yeah. And
that, I just a little bit off topic. I opened a business in Dallas. We opened it in Austin, a pet grooming business in Austin back in 2016. Now, me and my business partner, we lived in Dallas, right? We were trying to juggle jobs and go down there and manage a store. We opened it in a retirement community in Austin. I mean, the principle behind it was a sound principle, but we were living 220 miles away from it, right? So it was difficult to manage. So we closed that and we opened one in Dallas, and it's a doggy daycare and grooming facility, and the place is absolutely thriving, right? It's going really well. But the reason it is because there was a kind of a learning curve through the one that didn't succeed, and then the vision became clearer to how to make the next one succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you learn from I won't call them mistakes. You learn from your experiences.
Yeah.
And you take your negative ones and turn them around into something how you can make it a positive for your next venture.
Yeah.
So the craft beer world is something similar, right? Because you can take a lot of your experiences, because you take a lot of like the hospitality industry, you know, what you've seen doing well, what you haven't seen people do well, and you bring them into your experience. If you want to open up a successful craft beer business, you know what your trends are, right? Know the beers that are going to make you money.
Yeah.
You know, don't go with 9 IPAs that are 9%, because people will be having one and have to leave.
Yeah.
Just simple stuff. But people that get into business just as a passion, without laying out their vision and strategy and how to make it a success, you know, man, you're climbing an uphill mountain.
Yeah. I think that's great advice too, Ronan, what you said. And I think we talked as well before we went live on this about, you know, experiences and looking back, and, you know, are you glad you made that decision? I think you're always glad, right? Because it doesn't matter, ultimately, whatever you choose, you're going to learn from it. Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, you'll always be able to apply it. And so procrastinating, you know, at length about will I do this or will I do that? I mean, of course you want to make the right decision, but ultimately it doesn't matter, you know, because you'll go into it, you'll learn something from it. And if you want to move on, you'll move on. I think that, you know, that's good advice. But starting that business, I didn't know you did that. That must have been a really good, a good challenge, but a good learning curve when you started that business in Dallas, you said?
Yeah. It's a lot of sleepless nights, you know. Like I didn't know how to cope with a lot of the pressure, right? Because there's a lot of outgoings financially, and I wasn't fully prepared initially for the financial investment. I had an idea of the upfront costs, but there's a lot of sunk costs that go into operating a business, and you know, put a lot of financial stress. And over time, I learned how to cope with it, right? I think you become, I wouldn't say resilient to it. It's not a case of being resilient. It's just a case of opening your eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Like, it takes a lot to get a lot. You're not, I think people have this misconception of America in general, that, you know, you go to America, you know, there's the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
And the doors will open for you. Well, you know, let me just tell you all right now, that's not the way it happens. You know, there's nobody waiting at the airport with flowers for you. Welcome to America.
Yeah.
You've got to grind. You've got to figure out your way, how you're going to create your value, and how you're going to implement that value that creates sustainable business. Whether it's for your employer, whether you're working for yourself, you know, it's there's a lot of there's pressures. I mean, listen, you and I talked before we started recording, and you know, what is like the medium to communicate when you want to advertise your business? Well, for us, right, it was a big spend to do the pet business, right? The pet business was spending for Google AdWords and marketing spends.
Yeah.
And they build up over time as well, right? So you've got to get the right message out. You've got to hit it at the right times of the year. You've got to hit your peak holiday periods. You know, the phone has to start ringing. You have to book the orders when they start ringing. You have to upsell, like everything else.
Yeah.
You have to upsell, and that's a great learning curve. You know, it's a great learning curve in life for anyone. That don't settle.
But you must have had an advantage. Sorry, Ron. You must have had an advantage, though. You must have taken a lot from your sales career. It must have been a huge help when you were starting up that kind of business. You must have, there was an advantage for you in that sense, I would have thought. Was there?
Yeah, well, you know me, Ben. I'm a driven guy anyway, right? Like I said, I'm not going to hold back to get. Like, you know, I don't believe you should. I think that if you want to go get something, that, as I said before, like the biggest learning curve I took from all of it, Brendan, from bringing sales into this, was be more strategic in the plan. Like looking at where you, like, have that 5-year plan in your head. Have it in your head. Like, look, for example, right, I have like stuff written down here, like, and these are like goals for 2021. So every day when I'm coming into my office, I look at my goals for 2021.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's just preparation.
Why not? Like, why not show a little bit of ambition for yourself that you want to have your benchmarks that you want to achieve? I mean, because, you know, you can bitch and moan about the systems. Oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this one. Well, what are you going to do to change it?
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But it's a great attitude.
Rocket science, man.
Yeah. It's a great
It's
attitude.
not rocket science. I mean, but go, I'd tell that to anybody. Like, go get it. Like, don't be waiting around for someone to tell you can do something. Go get it.
Yeah. No, it's great advice. Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, but, and it seems, maybe it seems obvious to some people that would be listening that's what you should do. But I think it's not that obvious always to people starting out, you know, that they can have that attitude and they can go for it. And even simple things like you showed there, having the card where, you know, you've marked out goals, be they personal or professional, for the year ahead. You know, do that as soon as you can, you know, and as reading it every day keeps the mind fresh, keeps it focused. You mightn't achieve all of them, but that doesn't matter. It's the fact you're thinking about them, you know. I think it's a really, really good idea. And the other thing I was thinking about, Ronan, you mentioned, you know, you've obviously now, right, you've worked in big corporates, sales, you've worked in smaller firms, maybe startups, you've started up your own firm. For somebody, let's say, that's not even gone into college yet, and they have a similar mindset to you, they like the idea of sales, they have that personality, they like engaging with people, they like the banter. What advice would you give them to start out? Would you say go work in a corporate, or would you say try and find a small company, learn your trade there, or would you advise something else? Would you say go to college and study this? What advice would you give somebody maybe pre-college coming out of school if they're thinking this is what I want to do?
It's a fantastic question, and I think the first thing I tell anyone to do is read. You know, pick up a book that's been a proven success sales story on how to sell. You know, it's the other thing I'd say is talk to people that are in the industries, right? Find mentors, because it's life is short enough, right? Like, it whizzes by. I remember we were talking earlier about when you're 20 to when you're 30, to us both hitting 40 this year, right? But you think about kind of the in-between of all of it. If you could teach talk to a Brendan of when he was 21 or 22, if you said to Brendan when he's 21, 22, hey, listen, buddy, read this book and this book, and by the time you're 40, it will pay back dividends for you. Now that's a no-brainer decision.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer decision. And as well, that will teach you on what you might want to go sell. I mean, you might want to go sell something that you're passionate about. You might want to go sell something that's good for the world. You might want to go sell something that's the new technological advancement platform company that's out there. But the only way you do that is by asking people questions that are in their fields. You know, asking somebody, whether it's a LinkedIn's a great medium to use this. Reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. Monotonize your network on LinkedIn. Reach out to them and ask them, hey, listen, I love the field that you're in. I'm a college student. I would love to, if you could just save 30 minutes of your time for me, that I could just explore your mind on how you got to where you got to. Yeah. It's a one, and I'll tell you what, anybody that's out there that doesn't want to help people do that, then shame on them. Yeah. Because that's your job, right? That's something you should do because it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Give back. Absolutely. Give back to the younger generation and help them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Why shouldn't you? Why? Think about it. If you're Brendan, go back to Brendan when he's 21. If Brendan when he was 21 had a Brendan, when he was 40, talking to him about some of the life challenges that he's faced through his career, Brendan would learn more than he did when he was 21.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, even, I think LinkedIn is brilliant, probably more for, young professionals that are maybe in track. But as you said, for kids coming out of school that are, have that kind of bug to get into sales, it is finding people. You probably have people in your wider family, you probably have friends that know people that are in sales. So, have a coffee with them, set it up, figure out what it's all about, really. Yeah. And read, as you said, which is very important. Have you, not to put you on the spot, is there any books in particular, Ronan, that you can think of that maybe inspired you, or that you might have read from a sales perspective, or any authors in sales that were useful to you?
I think the best sales author, in fact, I know the best sales author is Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar.
He's got multiple books. I mean, I've got his. I have his books. I also have audio books. So when I'm out taking a walk in the afternoon, right, I'll throw it on for 40 minutes. If I'm preparing for a sales meeting, I will listen to some Zig Ziglar books. And there's different chapters and different books that I'll just pick up if I need it for that time. Now, another great tool and resource to use for people is LinkedIn Learning. Use LinkedIn Learning because, for me, for example, the other day I did a course on value pricing, right? And only because it's something that I want to improve on. I want to kind of get my mindset. So I was like, why not do it? Like, it's an hour and 20 minutes and there's a workbook that comes with it. So I'm educating myself. And then I also I also read books on, life in general, right? As in, a great author that I've come to pick up his book constantly is Andy Andrews. It's a great book called The Noticer, and it's all about perspective in life. And I find that there's times when I need that, right? I'm the father to two growing boys. There's a lot of pressures throughout the world every day. Yeah. It's good just to take a step back and just realize that a lot of times you get caught up in your own bubble, in your own head. Yeah. It's better to find your way out of it quicker than later.
Absolutely.
So if you can pick up a quick chapter in a book that sets you kind of back on the zone, get back into your level, then why not do it?
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, especially nowadays and looking forward at how the world is going. I think well-being, mental health is crucial, and looking after yourself in that way. And the younger you start that, without doubt, the better. Find something that resonates with you, whatever it is, even, getting up in the morning, getting whatever your beverage is, coffee or tea, going out somewhere for 5 minutes, looking at whatever's in front of you and just, that's small. It's a small thing, but God, it can set you up for the day, just taking time for yourself, or whether it's yoga, whatever it is you're into, but make time for yourself just to, contemplate yourself. If that's a way of saying it,
Yeah, no, Brendan, I think it's it's fundamental, right? Yoga, I've done yoga for years and I love yoga.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic way just to stretch. I think it's a fantastic way to just master your breathing, and I think it's something everybody should look into doing.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have a misconception about what yoga is, right? Well, yoga is all about breathing, and if you can control and manage your breathing during situations, then that's going to enhance your sales career. Also, it's going to enhance your life.
Yeah.
It's gonna give you the tools to teach your kids that through a situation, instead of panicking or getting frustrated, you take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say I have the cure for everything, because I still have those moments of, combustion where I'm I'll have to go take a walk because somebody will piss me off, right? That's life. I'm not saying it's not. But over time, you try and learn the tools to control a bit more of how you want your kids to act in the future, control how you want to portray yourself in the future, and dude, you gotta look for whatever edge that's gonna allow you to succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, mental health is, I fully agree with you, mental health is a huge one.
It's massive.
Think about the impact after COVID.
Yeah.
Like, the impact after COVID, right? Not trying to get off topic here with you because I know but it's an important thing to say.
Oh no, go for it.
Like, you have kids that have been told not to go outside. You have kids that have been told not to go play with their friends in school. And you are being told by another person that this is the way it has to be. Now think about that, right? And then you also have a place in the world now where, kids are being told that, okay, well, for the next 6 months, we're going to just do online learning. For 6 months, so you're going to just see your friends through online learning. Well, that's not healthy.
No. Yeah.
That's not healthy. And I think in years to come, that unless there's a proper plan how to help these kids kind of acclimatize back into the environment, how not just say, off you go again, good luck to you.
Yeah.
There will be kids out there that will suffer mentally massively, right?
Yeah.
With this. Think about 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds that are coming into like that stage in life where they're learning to express themselves more. They want to be out with their friends. They're probably going to get into a little bit of mischief, right? Like, let's call it as it is.
Yeah.
Like, now, man, they have just access to this. So mental health, like, parents need to make sure you're in good physical condition, make sure your mental health, and psychologically, get out there, talk to your kids, and get them active, get them playing sports. Don't have them in front of a TV all the time. Over here, man, it's 110 degrees in the summertime. There's not a lot you can do past 8 o'clock in the morning with your kids outside.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
I'm the first to say it. Like, we have them in front of it, like TV. Like, sometimes they're just, and then we have to get them doing something different. But something like a lot of times their friends will come over to play and stuff, which is great. But man,
it's difficult. It is tricky. That part is hard with kids. All right. I mean, trying to find the balance between that TV time or whatever it is they're into, and trying to get them outdoors. It's difficult, but that's probably an age-old problem in one sense. But it's certainly getting more challenging with technology and everything, I think. But one thing you said there, I mean, the impact of COVID on kids, I mean, it's unquestionable, and maybe we won't quite know, but one positive thing I found out of it was, like you said, the kids, I have 2 in school, so the small fella wasn't, impacted. His life didn't change radically, I suppose, but the kids staying at home for that 6 months, my eldest in particular wasn't a huge fan of going to school, I would say, and once that lockdown ended, her whole approach and outlook on school has changed. It appears permanently. She'd like to go to school at weekends if she could now. And it's funny psychologically how that just turned it on its head. You take away, you say now you can't go to school anymore. You're not allowed, and it just flipped the switch. I'm not going to see my friends. What do you mean? And it just changed everything for her. So I mean, I suppose that's a positive.
You know what, man? I hadn't thought of it like that way, right? So that's like a learning note from a great perspective that you've given me. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah. But I mean, it won't be the same for everybody. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I think
it's awesome. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. But last one, look, I've kept you. I know you're busy today, Ronan, and it's early hours in Houston, in the US. But last question, and we broached it, and you've probably answered it a little bit. But if you could go back to young Ronan and meet him for a coffee this evening, what would be the main message you'd give him about what you know now versus, and let's kind of look at the career track and what you've done over the past 15, 20 years. If you could meet the 20-year-old Ronan, what would you say to him?
Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be so hard on yourself. I think, you can beat yourself up at times when things don't go the way you want them to go. And you can be too harsh on yourself, whatever about anybody else, right? you know, you're never going to make anybody else happy unless you're happy yourself. So I would just say to a Ronan, like, of like 20 years ago, like, just, you know, you're not going to cure the world's problems. You're not going to solve every issue in the world, and just give yourself a break once in a while. Just remember it.
Perfect. On that note, we'll call it. But listen, it's been brilliant catching up with you. It's been way too long. It's been 10 years since we met each other in Dublin. And look, if you're ever in Portugal, for sure, let's catch up and meet the family. And if I'm over in the US, I'll definitely be giving you a call. But it's been a pleasure, Ronan. Thanks a million. I really appreciate it.
Brendan, absolutely, man. Thanks a million, Brent.
Take care.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.